oh, the censure of Adam Schiff, I really just don't give a rat's ass. I think Adam Schiff is a bad dude. I think he lied a lot. I think he's one of these people. The only thing I will give him credit for is there are certain people who have, certain politicians who have this amazing gift to be incredibly partisan hacks while sounding above board and reasonable. And he's one of the best out there at that. He sounds like he is speaking more in sorrow than in anger. He sounds like he has complete command of the facts, that he has inside information that is that supports his claims, and he makes stuff up. He's a hack, and I'm not sure this was like a hugely valuable thing for the GOP to do politically. Not sure it's worth all the time and energy put into it. I'm not sure it actually hurts Adam Schiff because he's going to run for Senate, and being censured by, Marjorie Taylor Greene in that crowd is not exactly a fatal blow to a California Democrats campaign for Senate, particularly in the primaries. But I have no sympathy for Schiff whatsoever. Speaking of people I don't have sympathy for, I actually am loving the Mean Girls spat between Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Not since Thomas Jefferson called John Adams a super duper poopy head have we seen more glorious statesmanship in American politics. No, really, I thought it was just outrageous that Marjorie Taylor Greene told Lauren Boebert that those protein bars were good for losing weight, when really they made her gain weight, which is a deep cut Mean Girls reference. If you needed, I hate to explain that, but I just know the world that we live in now, where Mean Girls seems like a really old movie to a lot of people. What else? So let me talk about Ukraine and Russia for just 2 seconds. I made this point on the Dispatch podcast. I also made this point when I was subbing for Sarah on the Left, Right, and Center podcast, radio show, both. I'm not exactly sure where it appears in the universe. Fun fact, I'm happy to be on that show these days. I've been on it a couple times. I boycotted that show for over 10 years. They used to ask me, totally different team, all that kind of stuff. So I don't feel like I'm casting shade at anybody now, but I hated that show years ago. And part of it was because Ariana Huffington, who I've never liked, I have a lot of experience with Ariana Huffington. You know how I don't like compliments on, and I always told guests just kind of, especially Steyerwalt, and AB and those people, to cut it out. I'm sure there are deeper psychological reasons why I don't like compliments. It's not so much that I don't like, I like hearing about them. Sometimes I like reading them, but because I'm a human being. But I'm so terrified of taking them badly that when they come from friends who I think are being sincere, it just makes me super uncomfortable. But when they come from people who I don't think it's sincere from, it infuriates me. And, in Washington, in sort of green room culture in Washington, there are people whose entire sort of life strategy, business strategy, is to compliment the hell out of anybody they think they can get something out of. And some people do it for various mercenary reasons, like Lanny Davis. For those of you who remember him, he used to be a huge spinner. He's now Michael Cohen's lawyer. But we used to, back in the old days, go on Larry King a lot against each other. And he would always do this stuff where he would compliment the hell out of me in the green room. Jonah, you're one of the only people in this whole Clinton scandal who has kept their honor and their integrity. And you don't take cheap shots. And I just think that's just one of the greatest signs of your character. And I want to congratulate you for it. And I don't think he meant 4% of it. Because then when you get on the TV with him, he's like hurling insults and not direct, like you're an ass insults, but like he's taking these wildly asinine, you know, deviously unfair bad faith shots at anybody who disagrees with him. And it was pretty clear what he was doing was just making you feel bad for correcting him, right? It was a way to sort of soften you up so that he could get away with more. There's a lot of that kind of stuff that goes on in Washington, and I just hate it. I feel like it's an insult to my intelligence when people do that. And the only reason I'm going down this rabbit hole is that is it was always my overriding impression of Arianna Huffington. It's like every time I saw her, the most important columnist in America, the man who created blogging, all this nonsense that I just never believed for a moment she believed, but she thought I would believe that she meant it sincerely, and that infuriated me. Anyway, so the reason I got on that rabbit hole is because Arianna Huffington, I believe, started out on that Left, Right, and Center show as the conservative, as the right, and then she sort of moved left, and then became like the center, and then the left, and then, or at least that was my my recollection of this. And then I could be wrong about it, but I just remember they would always ask me to be on, and I just never wanted to be on a show with her. And then at one point, they basically went with the model of left, right, center, and Arianna Huffington, as if like she was just such a valuable asset to any conversation that even though she doesn't fit with the whole paradigm of the show, we're going to keep her around anyway. And I was like, yeah, just stop asking me to come on this thing. But anyway, I was on it recently. Perfectly fine show now. David Greene is the host of it. I like that guy. He's a very decent dude. Disagree with him on a lot of politics stuff, but I think he's a decent dude. And they have Mo Alethi, who I love, and and Sarah's usually on there. But I wouldn't be on with her. I brought this up on there a couple weeks ago. Man, that was quite a digression. I apologize. The blowing up of the dam in Ukraine, I think the West wildly underreacted to that. I think that was, I think it's increasingly clear that Russia did it. And I thought it was pretty clear at the time that Russia did it. Can't be 100% sure, but even if it happened the way the Russians claim it happened, where the Ukrainians shot artillery at it, it would still, in a fundamental way, it would still be Russia's fault because they invaded Ukraine, they took control of that dam, and they also wired the thing with explosives. We knew that a long time ago, so they're responsible for it, whether it's a accident in a war or if it's just a straight up accident, and certainly if they did it themselves. And regardless, the way the West reacted to it was they condemned it. It's a tragedy. There was a lot of passive voice stuff about how it was a disaster. As I credited Noah Rothman at the time, it's not a disaster, it's an atrocity. And the reason why I think that the West underreacted, or the reason I gave why I think the West underreacted to it, is that Russia is always testing. It's always watching how the West responds to things to see what it can get away with. And the blowing up of that dam was a war crime, because it was, an indiscriminate way of killing civilians. There's all sorts of stuff in the Geneva Conventions about this stuff. It just simply was a war crime, right? But it was a specific kind of war crime where it rendered vast swaths of the ecosystem, the land, unusable, dangerous. It turned, over time, it turned the water into a huge disease vector, in part because so many livestock, so many animals, including a whole zoo, drown in this thing, and then those bodies rot and you get cholera. And when the West, broadly speaking, treats it as if it was some sort of, almost natural disaster or lamentable byproduct of a war, without putting the culpability, responsibility, and agency on Russia, Russia says, so we can get away with things if we give people this psychological or rhetorical out to say it was an accident. And as I said at the time, this is going to be really bad because we know Russia has been toying with the idea of doing basically using the Zaporizhia power plant as a dirty bomb, right? As a dirty bomb and as a psychological weapon, if not a weapon of mass destruction. And the way the West reacted, I argued, is going to give Russia a sense of permission that it can go farther and do something like that. And now we see Zelensky, look, and he could be wrong. It could be part of his, public relations stuff or whatever, or based on bad intelligence. But Zelensky is now suggesting that Russia is going to, in fact, do that with the Zaporizhia power plant. And that would be, first of all, just a disaster. But second of all, it would be a foreseeable disaster. And I shouldn't use the word disaster, atrocity, because I think we didn't draw a bright enough line about the dam. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think so. Maybe Russia won't do it. But if it does do it, I think it was in part because of the moral hazard of the way we responded at the time.